I'm shocked. They sound like every other aging boomer couple I've ever heard. This is pathetic, okay? It's the kind of hit piece you expect Fox News to throw at Hillary Clinton. Trump is not somebody that's likely to gain my sympathies naturally, but if you turn him into the underdog, people will become more receptive to what he's saying. The left has a fundamentally different psychology. We don't pile on the persecuted. We don't take pleasure in kicking people when they're down. We're stuck with this weak human emotion called empathy. We align with the downtrodden. We want your huddled masses. We claim the meek shall inherit the earth. So stop attacking him personally. Go after his policies. The more you attack him as a person, the more you victimize him, and the more we seek to identify with his perspectives. That's in regards to a completely ridiculous piece on something that Donald Trump said about his wife 20 years ago. More like 30 years ago. Actually, about his ex-wife 30 years ago. It sounds like something my dad would say. You know, like I've heard that I've heard that my whole life. You know, and then 5 minutes later, after he says, she does everything I say, he's doing something she told him, right? It's just empty macho nonsense, right? And I think most people can see it fairly clearly as that. And that really jumps right into the nonsense about. Actually, let's just cut that off there. It is the end of the month, and I am literally out of everything. There's no bananas, or I had my last one today. There's no tomatoes. There's no salami. There's no cheese. There's no eggs. I've got a little bit of soy milk, condiments, a couple bagels, and some juice. So I'm not flat broke. I could go to the store and buy myself something to eat, but I decided it's probably a better idea to try to use up some of these things that I had up here. Kind of get rid of all that stuff and then go grocery shopping either tomorrow or maybe the next day. The check comes in tonight. It'll be around 4 o'clock in the morning. So this might look like blueberry yogurt or something. That's what it looks like to me when I look at it. But what it actually is it's 2 cans of mushroom soup and a can of black beans. The can of mushroom soup is not expired, and the can of black beans, this is about a year. I think the black beans are the kind of thing that it's like, what does it mean for a can of beans to expire? It's a bunch of beans sitting in an airtight container, surrounded in a salty liquid. The preservatives aren't going to stop working. There's not really any chance that anything's going to get stuck in there. In the worst case scenario, that something starts growing, well, you eliminate things that grow by heating them. So that's what I'm doing. Is I'm heating up the beans with some soup. If it's good, I have another one, and I'll make it again tomorrow, and I'll do what was I calling this series? A cuisine series? I can't remember. My bagel just popped. I gotta put some butter on there. I'm gonna get something to eat. Did I get any? By the time I got the CBC back up last night, I didn't get nearly as much done as I wanted. I'm waiting for a set list to come up on one of the things I want to go see on Thursday, which is actually tomorrow. If it comes up, I need to put this down to do that. So if it comes up well, then I'm going out tomorrow. If not, then I'm going to stay in and keep archiving. I'm like weeks behind where I wanted to be, but I'm halfway done what I'm doing, and it makes sense to finish it and then make a decision after that. Well, I just filled it up with pepper. So that was 2 cans of mushroom soup. 1 can of black beans. I put a can of one of these cans with water in, just one can of water, and lots of pepper, and mix it all up, and it's tasting pretty good. I'm thinking that if I'm going to augment it, I might want to throw a little bit of either maybe Caesar dressing or perhaps hot sauce, something a little tangy. But I'm going to start off with that first, see where it goes. I'm also thinking it might be good with a little bit of chicken in it. So maybe one can chicken soup and one can mushroom soup next time. I don't know. I do. That's how you cook, okay? I don't want to hear about, like, I went on the internet and I found a recipe. No, 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 no. Just take what you've got, throw it up, mix it up, and experiment and come up with something yummy. And if it looks funny or other people don't like it, then fuck them. It's all about the creative aspect of it. Cooking isn't about following rules. It's about making rules up as you go. Life is not about following rules. Life is about making things up as you go, and cooking is just a part of life. Anyways, I'm going to enjoy my mushroom bean soup. And mushroom bean soup, I mean, like, you can buy that in a restaurant, right? That's not such a crazy idea. Anyways, I'm going to enjoy that. So I ate as much of that as I could. That's what's left for the fridge for later. That'll be I can zap that. Have it with a bagel sometime later tonight or tomorrow. How is it? It's actually quite good. I think that I put quite a bit of pepper in it, so I think that the effects of the hot sauce would have been just to make it more tangy. That could have been accomplished as well with the dressing, but I don't really think it needed it. I mean, it was a lot of beans. It was what, 19 ounces worth of beans. 500. That's what? So it's a half a pound of. Yeah. Well, no. Yeah, it's not measured right. I wish it would have been measured in terms of. If it was water, you could convert water, but 540 milliliters of beans is not 540 grams. Why is it measured in milliliters? That makes no sense. Why is it not measured in grams? I don't know. It was a lot. Anyways, there's still a few left in there, but I mean, I ate basically a whole can for the beans. We'll see how my intestines react to that. And in fact, we're gonna have to see how my stomach reacts to that because it was a year past expiry. So, but it was actually quite good. Eating it, I think it reminded me a little bit of well, it was practically gravy, right? Mushroom bean soup. That's gravy, or vegetarian gravy, anyways, right? So, excuse me. I think it would have been better with just a little bit of meat. So I would recommend doing that with chicken soup. So one chicken soup, one mushroom, um, and you could use a little bit of tomato, just a tad. So whether it was from the hot sauce or the ketchup, but as it was still quite good. And not only would I do that again, I think I will do that again because I want to get rid of these beans. They're far too far gone. It's one thing to let some beans sit around for a while. It's another to sit around for years. So, let's see how my stomach and the rest of me reacts to those beans before I eat any more. But that's that. I am a little sleepy, of course, unfortunately. We'll see how long I can stay up for and how much I can get done. And again, we're going to have to wait for the set list to come in before I decide what I'm doing tomorrow. Which actually is probably today. That's the, I think it's probably around 7. I didn't wake up until like after 5 today. So, it's going to be hard to work this out in such a way that makes sense for me to get to the show. unless I can force myself to sleep a little bit more this evening. We'll find out. I'm not sure why I didn't put this out yesterday. I suppose I just forgot. Okay, and I have now officially decided what it is that I'm doing. I don't know why I'm taking this particular walk the way I'm taking it, but whatever. I think I just wanted to move this in here. I will go to there were two sort of DJ nights I wanted to go to tomorrow night. One of them was the Primitive Languages Showcase, which I was pretty sure I wanted to go to. It was just a question of what I was going to do after that. There was a late night show at a place called Tires. That's a little bit out of the downtown core. It looked like they had a lot of DJs booked. The last half of the night looked like it was going to be fairly interesting noise music. It sounded like a good spot to spend the second half of the night, but I misunderstood the premise. They're going to close at 2, and in fact that night got canceled. So instead, there is... I had really yet to... I have yet to go out to Detroit with the express purpose of dancing. That's going to be the deal tomorrow night. So what I'm really looking for, because of the bus situation, I mean, if I could just go out, dancing for a few hours and then come back over the bus, come back over the bridge or under the tunnel or something, that would be the ideal situation, right? So just to go to the one night, wait till it's done, and then go home. I can't do that because of the bus situation. Instead, I have to figure out something to do until 6 o'clock in the morning. And I don't really want to sit in a hotel. I don't really want to sit in a Coney Island shop. I'm out to, it's a night out, right? So what I'm looking for is is a club that's open after hours, right? An all-night club. There is one. It's the Works. At least Thursday, Friday, Saturday. There's also the Leland Club that's open Friday nights, anyways. Might be Saturday nights too. I had conflicting information on that, but tomorrow is Thursday. That means I can head to the Works after. Now that being said, I mean if the DJs stop at 10 after 12, I don't think they're going to, but if they do, then I can leave a little earlier. I need to plan for, I think that the show starts at 9. Let's double check that. Yeah, our doors are at 9. So I would figure that probably the sets that I'm interested in are going to run either at... See, because I'm not really interested in the last DJ, I may actually get out of there a little after midnight. But I'm not going to be worried about that, and I'm not even really going to think about that. I'm going to wait until it's done, and we'll see. I could end up at the UFO Club until after 3. I don't know what time exactly they're closed at or what time they have people out at. I haven't been there that late, so we'll find out. But I can then walk down the street to the Works and go from there. So I've got this planned out. This may seem kind of overly anal and a little bit neurotic, but you have to understand that I'm not just going out to a show or just going out dancing for a few hours and then I can come home. I'm going across the border, and I have to figure out what I'm going to do with myself until the sun comes up. So having an understanding of what exists and what is around me is imperative. And I believe that I've worked a plan out that will work. We'll see. But it's at the very least coalescing in a way that makes sense. That's a plan that will work if I'm near that area. And it's on a Thursday or a Friday or a Saturday. I am still getting to know Detroit. It'll be 2 years and a few months since I've been able to get over. Right, because the first year I couldn't get over. So And this is the first time I'm going out for this express purpose. So we'll see how that works out. But yeah, it's the plan, anyways. As incompetent as Trump will probably be, the status quo establishment is not doing a good job in differentiating itself. If Trump wins, people are going to look back and blame it on the media for transparent hit job after transparent hit job. And you know what? Maybe it's just the internet. Maybe that's what it worked 20 years ago when we were at the whim of network television. Maybe this inability for the establishment to get out of old media is the broader narrative for the election. It killed Jeb. It might kill Clinton in the end, and all the Fox News style takedowns of Trump are just blowing up in their faces too. I had a similar analysis of the last election in Canada, where the Conservatives relied entirely on TV advertising and ended up unable to even get through the old folks to the end. Okay, in the end, like they even lost the over 65 vote, which was like absolutely glued to him, right? And had been glued to him for 10 years. And in the end, he actually lost that, right? That was big, and it was just because the whole thing was just based around TV ads, right? Which most people never even saw. I didn't see a single ad because I don't have TV. I need to be clear. I don't get cable. I don't watch network TV at all. So I have not seen a single report on this from CNN, NBC, CBS, or whatever else. Okay? My coverage of this story has come to me exclusively via the internet. And as such, it has been framed to me entirely in terms of it being a manufactured tempest in a teapot. It's not even a question of the internet undoing the brainwashing. Sorry, I had to breathe there for a second. Forgot to do that. It helps to breathe. Okay. I literally have absolutely zero contact with the network TV narrative, and all I'm seeing as a consequence is an entirely transparently bungled attempt at a smear job. If even half of the under 40 demographic is equivalent, and I believe it's a conservative estimate, then it's only the networks that lose credibility here, and once again, that is dangerous. Because you've completely collapse the television as a source of information. Okay? The internet is not the best source of information. Certain sites on the internet are good sources of information. But broadly speaking, the internet is a terrible source of information. As bad as TV is a terrible source of information, but the internet is actually a worse source of information. Okay? Unless you're going to the right places on the internet. And the danger is that you turn Facebook into the place where people get their information. I stopped reading my Facebook feed because it was just full of trash. Okay, and the more you share it, it becomes you get this groupthink mentality that comes on, right? The more shares that something has, the more accurate it is, right? The more times you see something in your newsfeed, the more true it is. And so you can put down any nonsense you want as long as it gets shared enough, it becomes true, right? You see the same thing with, the best example of this is it's the whole, vaccines cause autism thing, okay? I've pointed this out in a few places before. I think this is the first example of the internet being used to spread just absolute nonsense. I don't think that the anti-vaxxer movement would have gotten anywhere if it wasn't for social media. Okay? And then on top of that, you have the anti-GMO movement. Okay? And it's kind of like right now, like none of this has really gotten to a crisis point yet. I think the anti-vaxxer movement has kind of gotten pretty close. But we're probably not very far from, the birther movement is another one. We're not that far from a really egregious concern attaching itself to social media like this. And if people are trained, to accept this warped perspective of reality, then they'll be more susceptible. The more nonsense that they're fed, the more susceptible they are, right? what you're doing is you're replacing the authority of the state-run media, or through however many intermediaries you want, with the authority of, of the fringe conspiracy movements, right? That's not a positive step. It's great to get rid of TV, but we need to replace it with good factual sources, right? And I mean, I've tried, I've tried debunking things. I've tried, putting down, more interesting things to share, and it doesn't have, it's not as glamorous, right? Um, in order to have the big share counts, you need a villain, you need like a cartoon narrative. It has to be sexy or exciting or scandalous or whatever, right? Because people want something exciting, right? It, the stale, boring facts aren't exciting, so they're not going to go viral with the same sort of um, uh, gusto, right? The truth doesn't sell, whatever sell means, right? I mean, if you want to go at this, I mean, you want to put nude models, on your you know uh, on your fair article or whatever, then try it kind of thing. I think that's probably your best chance kind of thing, but it's it, cutting down the mainstream media filters doesn't help if it's just replaced by nonsense, right? I mean, we're just not getting anywhere with that, right? So at least television, um, while it's while the biases of television are dangerous in their own way, they lean towards the. I mean, the purpose is to get people in line, right? I mean, that's what the mainstream media does. I mean, it may fuel, racial or gender conflicts or whatever, but ultimately, the purpose of the mainstream media is to act as a moderating force, uh, you know, get people to work, kind of thing, to take the edge off of every story, um, to work people up against people that are outside of their own kind of bubble, kind of thing. But it's a moderating factor, right? If you replace that with something that's really far out there, um, and it manages to outcompete the moderating influences. Um, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm all for let's let's tear some shit down. Great, but um, not if the people that are tearing shit down are anti-vaxxers or truthers. Um, you know, the Tea Party gun right marchers. It's these issues that are just whacked that are the things that people attach themselves to because they're what's sexy, right? You won't see that. You won't see a mass movement around modern monetary theory. You know, you might see an anti-war movement. That would be nice, but it's the ability of the media to work is proportional to the interest that is able to build on the issue, right? So when you remove all credibility from television, you're taking a group of people that are kind of zombified and you're throwing them into the arms um, of an extreme um, alternate media, right? It would be great if the infrastructure existed, to catch them and push them in the right way, but it doesn't. Um, I wish that I could say that I had the skill set to build it, but I don't. Um, I have the skill set to point that out and to suggest that it would be very useful right now if that safety net was being built, to stop people from being caught by, Alex Jones and RT, in addition to the rest of the things that I just suggested, right? So, as much as I don't like the television, um, it is very dangerous for it to just be um, uh, marginalized the way that it's being marginalized right now. And they really need to look at what they're doing, take a step back, and realize that they're only harming themselves by orchestrating such transparent nonsense and expecting people to fall for it. Indeed, to the young activist mindset, miscegenation is forbidden. We are to be kept separate, but treated equally. Please understand your opponent. This is about the recent viral video there. What's my view on cultural appropriation, anyways? I think that there is some issue regarding being disrespectful towards people. But I don't think that those issues are relevant due to the concept of appropriation. I think that I'm ultimately not really able to make sense of the argument. When somebody says that you're appropriating my culture, I don't really recognize. I don't accept that as a valid accusation. Now that said, that doesn't mean I think that the museum in London has the right to hold on to artifacts from a tribe from Papua New Guinea or something, right? That was just a completely constructed example, but I don't think that, insofar as that's a concern, I'm not looking towards the idea of the culture being appropriated. I'm just saying that that's not, you're taking something that doesn't belong to you, not in terms of the culture, but in terms of the actual physical object. It's just theft. Whether you're talking about a ritual or some kind of a religious rite or a cultural practice, a hairstyle, a type of music, I don't think that this is a serious debate. So you can talk about hip hop. I think that you have a lot of explaining to do if you want me to take the idea seriously that you have some claim to a musical genre or an artistic form due to a skin color. I can agree with you that hip-hop largely came out of the black community, that it's mostly black people that have taken part in it, but I don't think there's any logical argument that black people therefore own it. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that I reject the concept of property rights and intellectual property rights, right? So, I don't think that people have the right to have control over software or films or music that's of a certain age, right? And my rejection of property rights, intellectual property rights, in the broader context, rejects the idea of cultural property rights. Okay? But even so, I've just never seen the argument articulated well. If somebody could, in the comments, direct me to somewhere where the argument has been developed, that would be great. But it just seems to be taken for granted that if something is associated with a culture, then it belongs. Like, I don't I don't see where that makes sense, right? So in this video, they're suggesting something about dreadlocks. And there was a follow-up video where the guy says, Vikings did it as well, and somebody pressed him on it, and he seemed like he wasn't really able to answer the questions well. He seemed like he didn't really want to reject the idea. I will reject the idea flat out. Um, Even if the premise was true that dreadlocks came from Rastafarian culture and they were the only people that ever did it, I still don't think that you have some kind of a monopoly right over a haircut. Um, and I think that if I was that guy, I would want to do that just to piss you off, right? Um, I would be more inclined to support a protest movement that's about poking you in the eye and saying, no, you don't own this, right? To me, that's the issue. That's the issue I'm in solidarity with. I'm in solidarity with people that reject the idea that cultures have ownership rights over behaviors or practices. And I think that coming to a broader global culture and breaking down prejudices and divisions, um, I mean, suggesting that you don't own something as a culture is a prerequisite to building a more open, free society. I don't. I mean, even if I agreed, I wouldn't really want to associate with people that think that cultures are that insular, right? I don't like who would want to build a movement with people who would want to associate with those people, right? I'm not a voluntarist in the sense that it's usually bandied around, but I do believe in free association, and I certainly wouldn't want to associate with groups that want to, define themselves in such an insular manner. I would want to associate with groups that say, hey, I don't care what your skin color is, let's all be the same, right? So it's, I mean, I think that there's actually kind of I mean, this is an example of activists doing the work of the hierarchy, right? The hierarchy wants to divide you and conquer you and control you, and that's what they're doing here, right? They're saying that you can only have this hair color if you're this skin color. So you can only have this hairstyle if you're this skin color. So let's fight about it, right? Meanwhile, the banks are stealing both of their parents' houses, right? Um, but even if you sort of ignore that, it's still just I really just don't understand the argument, and I've never had anybody explain it to me. I've never seen anybody present me to literature that explains it well. It's just this sort of thing that's taken for granted, is that different races have different cultures and they shouldn't mix. And I have a really hard time understanding how it is that so many people that claim that they identify on the left can hold to this perspective. It's like they sound exactly like conservatives from the 50s. It's one thing to suggest that a lot of the reforms that happened in the 60s failed. I think a lot of us, I mean, regardless of where you stand in the fence, I think that it is pretty clear. I mean, I think a lot of it needs to be blamed on the policies of the 80s, right? I mean, to suggest that the policies of the 60s failed, and just because they did, I mean, they didn't fail in a vacuum. They failed because there was a lot of things that were set in motion to oppose them, right? The primary reason that the policies of Lyndon Johnson failed was Ronald Reagan's policies, because he undid a lot of them, right? But I mean, I do agree that a lot of the intent didn't transfer out. That doesn't mean that you should reverse it. I mean, Just because what happened in the 60s didn't work out doesn't mean we should go back to the 50s. I think that even acknowledging that the reforms of the 60s failed, the result was a lot better than the precondition in the 50s, right? So it's just a huge mess for me in my mind. And I really would love to see somebody actually articulate why this claim is supposedly valid. Like, well, what the basis of the argument is. Because it's just always been thrown at me as an assumption. And like I say, I've asked, and nobody really has the right, or at least nobody's ever provided me with a source that is actually convincing. Um, I just can't get my head around the claim or why it is that I should accept it. But I mean, I certainly do agree that indigenous tribes should have control of their relics, or that caricatures of culture can be racist. But I mean, it's not when it, the problem with a caricature of a culture is not that they're appropriating it, it's that they're belittling it, right? The problem with taking relics of a society is not that they're appropriating it, is that they're stealing it. And I don't at all see how that applies towards somebody with a haircut, even if that haircut is only, or a fashion, any other fashion decision, right? So if somebody could explain that in a way that might make sense, that would be great. It is now time for something that Hillary said, and we're going to do 2 in a row here, because of the way the schedule worked out here. So let's turn this off for a sec. I have said many times that I am a praying person, and if I hadn't been during the time I was in the White House, I would have become one. Because it's very hard to imagine living under that kind of pressure without being able to fall back on prayer and on my faith. I'm a heart liberal, but a mind conservative. So that's kind of like a compassionate conservative, which is what George W. Bush used to call himself. It's something that Hillary Clinton actually said.